negligence per se. Now that's a legal term which means if you violate that statute, the statute is designed to protect the innocent, and the innocent were suffered by your violation, that is negligence, period. We don't have to go any further and say, what did he do? How careless was it? How grossly negligent was it? He's been found guilty and lost his earnest certificate. And those are the facts that start this case.
Okay, sounds pretty miserable.
At this point, oh yeah.
Okay, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, we'll call the plaintiff.
Hello. Are you going to ask for her name and stuff like that, or is she going to pass it to me?
Woodland, Your Honor.
Oh, okay. All right, fire away.
This busting out.
Busted out. Is the proper way. Busted out.
I believe it's pronounced busting out.
It's German.
It's German. This busting out. Are you employed?
Yes.
And by whom?
The bank of Circleville.
That's the third best bank of Circleville?
Third best.
And your position there?
I'm assistant to the president sometimes.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I can't hear her. She's not talking into the microphone.
That's not a proper objection, counsel.
Just a point of order, counsel.
Yes.
Would you like me to?
On the date
I think we got the gist of it.
On the date incident back in October 2004, did you have occasion to participate in any fashion whatsoever in the Great Pumpkin Bowling Rally?
Yes, I worked for the bank as the representative sponsor, representative of the sponsor.
And the third best bank of Centerville was a major sponsor?
Yes, it was. I really wanted to sponsor the Chippendales when they came to town because I thought we'd attract more women to banking, but they insisted on supporting the pumpkin race.
So you became a participant in this pumpkin race rally thing?
Yes, as sponsor, we're entitled to balloon rides.
And you were chosen by the bank to be the representative of the bank?
Yes, yes.
Third best bank?
Yes, I had to go on the balloon ride.
You had to go, thank you. What was your schedule with respect to that balloon ride?
Well, we were kind of rushed because they weren't sure if we were going to fly, if the weather conditions were right. But then we got to the field and all of a sudden we were going to fly, so we had to rush and get out to where they were going to take off.
And the night before your actual day of flight, you had an opportunity to meet the defendant, Mr. Hatch?
Yes, Your Honor. There was a sponsor party.
Now, at the sponsor party Friday night before the flight, he was not wearing that silly hat, was he?
No.
Object, Your Honor, I object. This man is an aviator and his hat is anything but silly.
Thank you. We'll stipulate to that.
Okay, sustained then.
It's true that he was not wearing the aviator's hat the night before, right?
Right, he put it on when we launched because he said it made him feel powerful like a jet pilot or something.
Did he tell you that that hat is a replica, an antique of what the fighter pilots wore in World War I?
Yes, yes.
And what did he say about what that gave you in terms of attitude of wearing a World War I fighter pilot helmet?
He said that it made him feel like he was powerful and fast and could accomplish just whatever he wanted to do with that hat on.
And didn't he tell you that hot air balloon racing is just like aerial combat?
Yes, he did exactly say that.
And helped him get his attitude to prepare for aerial combat and balloon competition.
He said the competition was the most important thing.
Your Honor, I object. It wasn't mentioned anywhere in my script.
I myself, Your Honor, the defense provided very little.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. That's very nice.
And on the day of the actual launch, was he displaying that cocky attitude of a World War I fighter pilot?
Well, the several times that I've seen Mr. Limbaugh, he's had that attitude.
On the Friday night before, when you first met his acquaintance, were you offered any sort of documentation with respect to the voting riot?
I don't recall getting anything like that.
Did the defendant offer you any kind of explanation as to what you should expect on Friday about the upcoming voting riot?
Well, he did tell me to wear my boots, and I wore these.
Excuse me, Your Honor, point of order. I believe the insurance carrier is in the audience somewhere. I'd like to know if the costs of defense are covered in this litigation.
I think that's been stipulated.
That's a lot of luck.
Got to get paid.
We will be seeking non-punitive damages with court costs, attorney fees, and everything that the jury awards to us.
I'm sure you will. Give it a Thank you very much.
It's hot up here, isn't it?
If there's a paramedic,
Moving right along.
yeah, if there's a paramedic in the jury box, please come forward.
We only have an hour.
Yes, we do only have an hour and a half. We do need to move along.
On the morning of the actual launch, you had been scheduled to fly on Friday, but that was canceled, you said, because of weather?
Yes,
And so you were rescheduled for Saturday.
yes.
Now, did you understand very clearly the sponsors were not allowed flights except on Friday?
Oh, no, we were the title sponsors, so we got to go on a balloon flight.
Friday only.
Well, okay.
Leading the witness, Your
Excuse me. Yes. Is that how you're doing this today?
We're in Kentucky, anything's
Yeah. Thank you, I'll listen to that.
Honor.
On the morning of the balloon flight, Saturday, after that Friday, so, did you notice the appearance of a pilot anywhere near the balloon operation?
No, but I saw
Thank you.
this.
Did you notice him several hundred yards away over the pilot tent eating donuts?
Your Honor, he's leading again. I mean, I know we're in Kentucky. Come on.
Well, I think the donuts are.
Donuts are okay.
I noticed the basket was all sticky when I got it.
I'm sorry, I don't believe I heard that. And it sounds like it could have been very pertinent.
I didn't do anything, Your Honor. I want to laugh.
Okay, maybe I don't want to. Okay, Counselor, please continue.
From your impression of what was going on with the balloon activity, who was actually in charge of all the preparation of the balloon passage and all that?
Well, I think it was that gentleman over there in the glasses.
Would the gentleman in the glasses stand up so we can all?
Oh,
I don't recall his name. So
I believe that's Gordy does it all. All right, Gordy, you got to see.
sir, if I may, what is your capacity with respect to this balloon operation?
Crew chief.
And what exactly does crew chief for the benefit of our jury? What were your duties on that particular day?
Set up the balloon.
That means everything to set up the balloon.
If you say so,
So I'm asking you for your testimony.
then I'll say so.
Your Honor, I object.
Even I sense there's, maybe we should only go with one witness.
One witness.
I mean, I know I didn't go to school to be an attorney. Christ, I don't even afford a robe. But it is Kentucky, I understand, but, let's stick with one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time,
Let's
please.
finish with this young lady, and then we'll beat this young man up here in a minute.
We most respectfully object to that ruling. We're gonna have to court transcript of this, and take it out to an appeal.
Make it appeal.
Did you hear that? She's got it.
Did you notice that in performance of his duties as crew chief, that he was in charge of simply everything around the room because the defendant was nowhere to be seen except in the
Order! Why don't you testify? You want to get behind the microphone, counsel? I mean, come on.
I know, but at least he's moving the ball. Okay, go ahead.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Did the crew chief, I was on behalf of anybody, give you any kind of information about what to expect in this forthcoming going on?
Well, he said something about when we land to bend my knees and here sign this.
Was that the crew chief or was that the pilot later on?
I think it was the crew chief. No, it was the pilot.
Later on.
He just said to relax, the pilot will be here in a few minutes.
So you were,
He's overeating.
before you actually got into the balloon basket, you were giving no information about what to expect or what performance was expected of you? Nothing about landing or anything like that? Absolutely
I
nothing?
guess, no.
And was the crew chief busy supervising the efforts of others and himself, busy back and forth, doing one thing and another?
It took him quite a while to put that thing up, to put those
The thing we
wire
call
things,
balloons,
yeah,
all
those
that
wire
stuff.
things and tie those ropes and.
Did there ever become a time when you were asked to sign a piece of paper?
Yes, right as we were taking off, they said, oh, wait, you have to sign this.
And the crew chief did that?
Yes, he did that. I'm not quite sure what it was. I just, he said I had to sign it before.
Before that moment, had the crew chief been in an authoritative position? Was he handling things, supervising things, acting very gentlemanly, very polite,
He was just very busy because he was doing it all.
but in a nice professional, polite manner, is that right?
Yeah. It's pretty
And
good.
when it came time that that piece of paper was handed to you, did you take offense at the rudeness of that presentation?
Well, we were actually going off the ground and he said, wait, you have to sign this. So,
And he
very
Put
last
your
minute.
face,
Yeah, and
and he give you an instrument to sign?
yes, and I scribbled very fast.
Did you happen to read the title of that piece of paper? Did it have a title on it?
I don't recall.
Did you read any part of it?
I didn't have time.
And the manner was somewhat rude to hand it to you and say, sign this?
Yes, because I had to take pictures as we were taking off.
Yes.
I was busy.
Were you given an opportunity to ask any questions about what is this?
No, he just said I had to sign it quick before we took off.
And so you got in the basket somehow, and you're flying.
Yes.
During the course of the flying, did you have any opinion about the speed at which you were flying?
Well, there were times it seemed we were going quite fast.
Did you have an approximation, 15, 20, 25 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour?
One time it seemed we were going faster than the van below us.
She can have an opinion about the speed. Thank you.
Would you
We'll clarify
lay
that.
a foundation down?
When you observed the defendant in the aviator's hat over there in the donut tent, did he seem to be occupied by some sort of device?
He was fiddling with something all the time, thinking, trying to figure out something and explain that we were in competition and we needed to get to this goal.
And while you were flying, was he still fiddling with that thing, that device?
Yes, it seemed as though, once in a while he'd push that burner thing, and then sometimes fiddle with the, it might have been a GPS.
Yes, very well might have been.
I think that's what
And
they
from time
call
to
it.
time, did he call out to you, he said, wow, we're doing 25 miles an hour, 25 knots, anything
Oh, I
like that?
recall it, yes, we were going quite fast. That's probably why I knew we were going fast.
And so they took their own personal estimate of the ground speed of the balloon. He was also calling out the speed of the aircraft based on his GPS.
And he did say we were getting closer to the target, which was that pile of pumpkins we spent all afternoon the day before piling up for the pumpkin fest.
And did he also give you not only your speed and your direction, you were on course to the target? He also read out his altitude,
I
things
know.
like 500 feet, AGL, 750.
I think as we got closer, I can't recall exactly the height of the pumpkin tree, but it was, you know, we were kind of approaching it.
Refer to the pumpkin tree, that was a stack of pumpkins in a pyramid shape like a tree.
Yes, the fire department helped us stack them up on Friday for the event. Henry was there.
And did the defendant tell you why he was aiming for the pumpkin tree?
Well, the goal, I guess, was to take the pumpkin off the top.
Yes.
Yes.
And if he was able to do that, was there a $1,000 prize for having done that?
Oh, yes, there was a prize. The third best bank put the prize up.
Yes. And did he tell you how important it was to him because he had to refinance his 1974 truck recently and he needed the money to pay it?
He did mention that. He needed a little bit of the rust taken off the edges.
Your Honor, I know we don't have a good relationship, but you're gonna let him do this all night?
Counselor, I might suggest for expediency purposes, maybe Ms. Bustin-Out could maybe describe, yes.
It's
well,
German.
later. Maybe she could just describe a lot of the details, and then you could ask the question later.
She can testify in a narrative form, I suggest.
Would you allow?
No objection, go ahead, knock him out, Cindy. Bustin' out.
Maybe tell us what happened. Why are we here?
Let me tell you,
Please.
as we approached that target,
At a high rate of speed over that.
the pilot over there decided that he had the right track for that pile of pumpkins. And he said, we're going to win this event, and I'm going to win that $1,000 and take it home, and we're going to win. So as we got closer, it seemed we went a little faster, and the next thing I know, we hit the ground, we got too close. No wait, he grabbed the pumpkin off the top, and then we hit the ground. I fell out of the basket. I was laying there on the ground covered with pumpkin stuff. And you know what, the next thing, there was a video of it on YouTube.
I have copies of everyone.
You know what that
Yeah, what's the
site is?
website?
As you approached the pumpkin tree, were you at a low altitude, below the ground, or were you like 500-700 feet high?
Well, I believe the pumpkin pile was approximately about 75 feet above the ground.
What was the altitude reflecting?
I'm not very good with numbers.
You really accounted for that, don't
Are you, things always look larger?
Well, clarification.
Yes. Well, I'm here.
This is 6 inches, right?
I think we're getting a picture. Does the defense have any questions?
Oh, I have some.
All right.
Miss Bustin' Out?
Yeah.
You opening testimony, you mentioned that you'd rather see the Chippendales than the boring old pumpkin fest. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you like the excitement of the Chippendales, do you?
Objection not
Yeah.
allowed.
No, I think I'll allow this.
So basically, would you consider yourself we'll say, sexual person in the sense that you get excited by things like this?
We'll stipulate
Of
that.
course not.
You want to stipulate?
Yeah, we'll stipulate.
Counsel stipulate. And Ms. Bustin out. Now, the other thing that I noticed is that during the newspaper interview, you complained that you perhaps wouldn't be able to walk in that special provocative way when you learned that while you were trying to make a career of beauty pageants.
Well, yes, there was a few.
I thought so. So you consider yourself not only to be sexual, but also provocative. Would you agree?
So stipulated.
I think that,
Yeah.
I object.
Now, Ms. Bustin out, and isn't it also true that when you hit the ground, your blouse, for some mysterious reason, was open and your bare breasts were exposed to the world? Isn't that true?
Yes, it was.
I thought so. Now, Ms. Bustin out.
Counsel, if you're gonna call for reenactment, we strongly object.
I might be able to say a little bit. Does anyone have a video? Well, then I'll allow you to do, yeah.
There's one in the back. We have.
I'll allow this line of questioning.
Your Honor, Your Honor,
Okay.
I assured attorney-client
It's
privilege, I
inside
will not
an
release that video.
Okay.
All right, then we'll just have to hear it.
So Ms. Bustin out. Is it not true that your blouse did not come loose or open as a consequence of the collision, but instead you were trying to seduce my client, Barry Aviator Delacroix?
Well, every time I looked over, his nose was right here.
Exactly my point.
We'd have to defense stand and demonstrate.
Object.
Please, a little decorum, this is a court.
And isn't it true, Ms. Bustin out, that in fact you became agitated and excited when you thought we're going fast and we're going for the pumpkin pile and we're going to win? Did that excite you, and did you in fact encourage my client who had misgivings about whether or not to go to the pumpkin pile?
Your Honor,
You said, in fact, let's go for it, didn't you?
Your Honor, we have to object. The pilot command is in total authority. He can't be persuaded by sponsors, event organizers, or
Just trying to get to the facts.
I understand, but we'll allow this line of questioning for a little while here. Ms.
We'll have to court reporter to note that for our bill.
Yes.
Didn't you? Did you say yes or no?
It was a little exciting.
I thought so. In all that excitement, you ripped open your blouse and said to my client, Barry Lipinoff, let's go for it.
No.
He may have had some confusion about what it was that you wanted him to go for.
No.
He'll testify later as to the truth.
He'll be under oath.
Now, Miss Bustin out, you knew that you weren't supposed to be aboard that aircraft, didn't you?
Well, no. I was a sponsor. I get a ride.
You knew that sponsors were not supposed to ride except on Friday night, didn't you?
Well, there was no flight Friday night.
That's
Certainly
right.
I got a ride.
And you were told that you weren't going to ride, and when you were told that, you said that you were going to make the bank pull the sponsorship, didn't you?
Next year we're going to have the Chippendales.
So you pressured the event organizer, Pat Chatterbox, to put you in that basket despite the fact that you weren't supposed to be there, didn't you?
Pass me.
Your Honor, we have to object. This is not one at all. The pilot command has sole authority, who rides, when they ride, and so forth. He cannot put up this phony, bumming defense that he was pressurized by anybody.
Well, I mean, we ought to give him a chance, don't you think?
Sir, this is Kentucky. We want that hung.
Well, don't worry about that. Let's at least get the question.
My objection is right there.
Okay. Now, you've told us Buston, in your direct examination that you're a banker.
Yes.
What kind of banking? What do you do? What job do you have?
And the assistant to the president of the bank sometimes.
Assistant to the president. I would imagine an assistant to the president would have an attention to details, wouldn't they?
Well, yes.
And an assistant to the president would know that documents are very important in your everyday life in banking, don't they?
I'm not very good with paperwork either.
I see. How did you get to be assistant to the vice president?
Objection,
Are you in the habit of signing documents without even reading them?
Well, no, but it was so fast, and we were taking off, and we had to leave, and
Now, you said we were actually taking off. Did you mean you were off the ground?
well, yes.
Well, I know
Holding him down.
Mr. Does-It-All there is a tall man, but you're telling this jury,
He handed that clipboard up there.
and you signed it instead of saying, I don't know what that is, I'm not going to sign that.
No, I did.
You just signed it, didn't you? Were you excited at that point?
We were taking off in a balloon. It was very exciting.
Okay, so I guess it's not as boring as you thought, huh? And you tried to make it more boring, didn't you? Boring, exciting. No further questions of this witness.
Okay. I think we've, yeah, we're not going to. Cindy, you may certainly step down now. Would you like to call another witness?
Yes, I'd like to call my expert witness,
And who might that be?
the doctor. Dr. Shepard.
Oh, Dr.
Are
Shepard,
you
yes,
right?
okay. We're going to let him testify from down there. Curious to see what he has to say. Okay.
Dr. Shepard, you've been sworn and testified as expert witness in a number of aviation accident cases, is that correct?
Yes,
And you're the holder of the MBE by Her Majesty the Queen?
yes.
Would you please explain to us when it counsel MBE by the Queen of England?
It's a member of the British Empire, and you get it for different functions you perform in daily life.
Below the royal court, there's a hierarchy of knighthood.
We'll stipulate to the doctor's credentials.
Excuse me for the interruption. So, the jury's entitled to know the vast expertise of a good doctor.
I think
Is that-
counsel is stipulating to the vast experience of Dr. Shepard.
We think that once the jury hears his formal credentials, that's the so-called hired gun by the defense, will probably leave the courthouse in embarrassment.
Well, I don't know about that.
That's our commitment.
Okay. Well,
I have to say that I have no experience in plastic surgery.
now that is important to know. That's very good, doctor. Do you have any technical questions for the doctor?
With respect to the weather briefing that was handed out to the participants on that flight day, did you have any comments about the weather forecasting information?
I thought it was not suitable for flying because of the wind speeds.
Is your opinion also based on the fact that the weather reporting stations were 3 airports that were a much greater distance from the scene as opposed to 3 airports that were in the proximity of the launch site?
I thought that was strange.
For a weather briefer to use remote airports for weather briefing as opposed to local airports Would that be negligence of your expert opinion?
I suppose, yes.
You've read the factual findings of the National Transportation Safety Board findings,
Yes.
and from that, did you observe that they were the conclusion that the pilot in question, the defendant, was flying in excess of the wind limitations of the event,
Yes.
and being flying in excess of the allowable wind speeds? Did that violate the terms of the FAA waiver?
Yes.
And in this case, the FAA waiver was 91-119 of the FARs.
Yes.
And the purpose of that waiver is to allow participating contesting pilots to fly lower than the statutory minimum.
Yes.
And so by violating the terms of the waiver, he was no longer operating under any valid waiver, and his flight at these altitudes were illegal,
Yes.
of a criminal nature perhaps.
Say that again?
His violation of the airspace regulations of 91-19 would constitute a criminal violation perhaps.
Perhaps.
Okay.
One.
You done yet?
I think he's just mumbling.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Counsel.
Oh,
Thank you. Dr. Shepherd, you say that the weather report that was given to all the pilots who participated in that event was faulty.
It wasn't faulty, it gave factual information.
But it didn't give the appropriate reporting stations as far as the proximity to the event. You just testified to that.
Well, what I said was that it was unusual to use stations that were a greater distance than the local ones that are available to the safety officer and the director.
And the purpose of having them closer to the event would be to have accurate weather at the event site. Wouldn't that be right?
That's correct.
So the further away some weather officer might put those reporting stations might betray his intention to deceive the pilots who are being briefed. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I think that may be his lack of knowledge of what the balloon limitations are.
So in your expertise, would you agree that it's important to have a weather officer who understands the nature of the aircraft and the purpose of his weather briefing?
It's always desirable.
And from what you're testifying to today, it appears that this particular weather briefer was lacking in that regard.
It's quite possible.
Now, you said that the conditions from the report itself indicated that it was not safe to fly.
The wind speeds were higher than I would be happy with continuing a balloon event.
And in fact, if the Federal Aviation Administration representative who was on site saw that weather briefing, he should know that as well, shouldn't he?
Yes, he would.
And the event coordinator, the balloonmeister, Mr. Sam Thunder, if he'd seen that weather report, he should have known that as well.
That's correct.
And the waiver, in fact, specified in the waiver that the flights were not to take place if the wind speeds would be in excess of 12 knots.
Yes.
And it is the function of the FAA person who happened to be on the site to actually stop the flight from happening if he was aware that the wind speeds exceeded the waiver declaration. And in fact, he could actually pull the certificate of waiver, couldn't he?
He could, but he'd consult with the, normally he would consult with the safety officer and the balloonmeister, and they would make their decision in discussing it with them.
Okay, do you have any evidence that occurred?
No,
Now, with regard to the persons that we've talked about, we have a weather officer, we have a balloon meister, and I would presume the safety officer also would be familiar with the terms of the waiver, wouldn't he?
yes,
Okay? Those are three what we call race officials, aren't they?
yes,
And those race officials have an obligation to function under the waiver, don't they?
yes,
And despite their knowledge that they had a duty not to have the flight, they called the task anyway, didn't they?
yes.
No further question.
Redirect.
Well, I thought he did a nice job there. You have something you'd like to add? Go ahead.
The ongoing NCAA basketball tournament would say that he just gave me the opportunity for a dunk shot. Thank you.
Go ahead and done.
Doctor, you're aware that in the current litigation, the event safety officer, the event balloon meister, the event weather officer, the event organizer are all co-defendants with the baron.
Yes,
Now, counsel would seem to suggest through your testimony that all of those people, all those officials were negligent in some manner, may have had something to do with that. Is that correct?
well, that's what he was suggesting.
Yes. Assuming that his argument is valid, if all of those officials were negligent in some capacity, does that in any way, under the FARs, relieve the pilot command of his sole and exclusive duty for the flight?
No,
He is solely responsible.
yes, once he's in the air, he's on his own.
If the weather briefing used Chicago weather for a flight in Florida, as bad as that is, does that relieve him of the responsibility?
No,
Is he responsible for obtaining his own weather information?
yes,
So his attempt to pass the buck goes nowhere with the FAR, is that right?
that's right.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Smart people up here. Okay,
One more.
I have to testify.
One more question of the good doctor. Now, we appreciate your answers, Dr. Shepard. However, isn't it, the pilot makes his decision based upon the information that's made available to him, correct? His
All
decision to
available,
fly
all
or-
available information.
I'm sorry?
All available information.
And then we know in this case, the information was distorted.
Objection.
Or not,
Facts
it
not
was totally
necessary.
correct.
Your Honor, we
Yeah.
object to that. He's misstating the facts. The
I think he's
information from
correct.
the officials may have been faulty, but that doesn't relieve him of his personal exclusive responsibility to get the real facts, his own briefing.
Second,
Nobody excused.
counsel.
I think closing arguments will be
That's
coming.
right,
before the-
that's right. Save it for argument.
Okay.
Okay,
Did you
I'm
have-
done.
Oh, you're done. Excellent. Okay, do we have another?
I don't know. You're
Remember, the mic is on.
Do you need a short recess or anything?
He's gonna pour the water.
All right.
Is this local brand?
Are you turning this over to the defense yet, or?
Yeah, for a moment.
Oh, we can come back?
We reserve the right to redirect.
Yes, yeah, we'll take turns. Counselor for the defense?
I'm gonna call the FAA man, what's his name?
Phil Finicky, or Andy Finicky, I believe. Of course, these people have all been sworn in ahead of time, so we don't fret over
Yeah,
those
we don't
details.
have to mess around.
Right, and it is okay.
Mr. Finicky,
Yes.
you were the FAA representative on site at the Pumpkin Fest in Circleville, Ohio on October 29th?
I was.
And were you there at the time of this flight that resulted in the injury to Ms. Busted Out?
I was.
And were you there at the briefing prior to the flight?
I was.
And you heard Dr. Shepard testify as to the obligation of the FAA representative at an event such as this?
I think I missed that part.
Well, why don't you explain to the assembled multitude here what your obligation as an FAA operator or FAA representative would be in a balloon rally in the event that there's something that doesn't comply with the FAA regulations.
It would be to make sure that if any violations of the FARs were made, that those are processed properly according to the regulations.
Okay. And you also have the authority to cancel an event or tell the event organizer and the balloon meister that a flight would not be allowable under the waiver.
No.
No. Oh. How long have you been with the FAA?
Long enough to know our mantra is, we're not happy until you're not happy.
I would say that you fulfilled your mission. Thank you very much. You did not advise a balloon meister to that this flight could not occur according to the terms of the waiver.
It's not within my responsibility to evaluate the weather conditions. It's simply to make sure that the paperwork is filled out in accordance with the rules and regulations and the waivers in place.
You didn't even know what it said, did you?
I read it.
I didn't say that. You didn't know what it said. I have no further questions of this witness.
Yes, sir. You were one of the FAA officials in charge of the administrative process against the defendant.
Yes, I was.
And the conclusion of that, after your investigation, and looking at the paperwork, and looking at the NTDSB reports, factual findings support, what was the conclusion of the administrative process?
The pilot in question violated the FARs and an action was taken accordingly.
Violated the FARs in terms of flying too low or congested populated areas.
That's correct.
Putting in jeopardy the lives and health of the children that were carving pumpkins in the park that day.
That's correct.
Putting in jeopardy the life, future of my client and victim.
That's also correct.
And what action did the FAA take in regard to all those violations of all those FARs?
We suspended his license for a period of at least 1 year from the date of surrender and required him to take remedial training from a certificated instructor for a period of 6 flight hours. He was also fined $2,500 by an FAA court judge.
Now that remedial training, that was quite some time back.
Well, he will be required to take remedial training in the future when he applies for his renewal of his certificate.
And your record show that he's taken any kind of remedial action in the meantime?
No,
None whatsoever.
not at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I redirect? Certainly.
No.
Mr. Finnegan.
Yes.
The administrative decision by the administrative law judge indicates that because the flight did not follow the specifications of the waiver, the Pumpkin Fest was terminated prior to the scheduled flight on October 30th, 04 at $1,600. Now that would be 4 o'clock your time, wouldn't it?
I'm sorry, which time zone are you in?
Well, did you pull the
1600
waiver,
hours is
Mr.
indeed 4 o'clock.
Finnegan? Did you pull the waiver?
Did I pull the waiver?
Yeah, apparently you terminated the Pumpkin Fest prior to the scheduled flight on October 30th, 04. You were the guy there, weren't you?
I was the guy there.
And you did do that, didn't you?
Question.
Review my script.
He just got done telling us that he had no authority to do that, but yet,
I think the court stenographer made a typo there and it was pulled afterwards.
hang him. He's got enough of that joke. I was pointed out by my learned. Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Finetti.
Okay, any, would you like to?
Is he done? You done?
Well, perhaps that would be time to put in our stipulation as to the injuries my client suffered,
You
broken hip,
want to stipulate that my guy pays the money too? I mean, hey, come on.
He doesn't have that kind of.
We will stipulate to the medical records.
Yeah, we'll stipulate that she, no, we're not stipulating she was hurt. We have evidence that she couldn't have been hurt. No. I won't stipulate.
We've only had a stipulation that the medical records come in showing the broken hip, the hospitalization, the lost wages. We give you payroll
Remember
documents
those
showing.
pictures that we saw?
Those pictures.
Those pictures. Did you want to see
In
it?
the hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, we'll stipulate that she was injured somehow, and that she was treated for something, but we're not going to stipulate as a cause.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more witnesses?
I'm going to call my young man, Mr. Lipoff.
Boo.
What an improvement.
You are the pilot of this ill-fated aircraft at the Pumpkin Fest, are you not, Mr. Lipoff?
I am, sir.
And do you know the plaintiff, Cindy Busted Out?
I do. She was a passenger.
Were you forced to fly this woman during the course of the Pumpkin Fest?
Yes, there was some pressure on me, yes.
Objection. This states the evidence there could be no forcing. The waiver, the injury agreement clearly states that the pilot will fly at the pilot's own discretion.
Mr. Lipoff, would you please explain the circumstance that led to your flying Ms. Busted Out as a passenger?
The night before, the weather was determined to not be good, and Miss Bustin' Out.
Mrs.
Yeah, Mrs. I didn't act that way in the basket.
Objection,
Yes, some noted. We'll ask the jury to pay no attention.
Unring the bell, please.
She threw a little bit of a tantrum about throwing her weight around with the money from the bank, and I know how critical that is to the Pumpkin Fest and how important it is to the community. So as a result, the organizers came to me, kind of asked me, can you do something here? And I'm a magnanimous person to be, on the reserve side. And I said, sure, I'll fly her tomorrow. Let's just do this because it is a major sponsor, and you lose that sponsor, you lose the event.
So what happened the next morning? You heard some testimony concerning the weather conditions and so on. Were you fully aware of how bad the weather conditions were, given the piecemeal briefing that you had?
My impression of the weather briefing was that things were getting better. So don't worry about it. Get out there, and it looks like it's going to be much better. And there was a very positive tick put towards being able to fly that day.
You found out to your dismay that they weren't quite what they had been representing once you were in the air, didn't you?
Yeah, that's a little too late at that point, unfortunately. You do the best you can.
Isn't it correct that Circleville, Ohio is so remote that it doesn't have cell towers, so you couldn't get a weather briefing from another source?
Well, that, and because of my religion, I don't carry a cell phone. True.
Your Honor, we're stipulating for religion Muslim.
So the only information you had to rely on was the information the misinformation given to you by the event organizer.
Well, I'm sure in their hearts they believe what they said.
Well, that was nice. That day, Saturday morning, did you,
I think there's an attitude.
let the record reflect that the plaintiff's counsel just mooned the...
You want to see Moon?
Now go on, tell us the events of Saturday morning. Explain after the briefing, the misinformation you received.
Well,
Explain what happened.
as it turns out, from what I understand, 24 of the 28 balloons actually flew. So obviously, more than just myself decided it was good enough to fly. We got out there, and my crew chief, who's also my brother-in-law, married to my sister, Mary Catherine, made sure that everything was okay. He'd watch out for me, so he was putting together the equipment, and everything was going fine. We got inflated and got set up and flight. It was a little bit rushed, unfortunately, because of the delay. Not because of me, but because they kept talking about what the weather was like and trying to put a good positive face on it. So we got a little bit of a late start on it, which, again, not my fault. I'm just listening to what's going on.
Now, with regard to the typical way that you handle your flight, do you personally brief your passenger, or do you have somebody else brief them prior to their getting into the aircraft?
Normally, my crew chief and brother-in-law, who's married to my sister, Mary Catherine, handles that for me. I will usually do a briefing once I'm in the air, and we get everything nice and stable.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the waiver that was offered to Cindy Petrehn out?
Oh, sure, absolutely. The requirement of the event is that a waiver is signed by every passenger and turned in at the end of the event.
And did you actually get the waiver signed?
Yes.
Who did that?
Cindy Petrehn signed the waiver.
Okay. And were you the one who offered it to her for signature?
Actually, my crew chief, Gordon, also my brother-in-law, married to my sister, Mary Catherine.
Thank you. So, and of course Gordy, your brother-in-law,
She was going to be a nun at one time.
Until she met Gordy?
Yes.
Or was she a nun already?
Next question, please.
So you, how long has Gordy, your brother-in-law, married to your sister Mary Catherine, been your crew chief?
Oh, about 14. 5 years. He's been my crew chief. 5 years.
5 years. Okay. And he has performed functions for you similar to this in the past,
Flawlessly.
and never had a problem with it,
No, sir.
and never had a passenger ask you any questions or be concerned about the waiver.
No, sir.
Any reason to believe Miss Buston out didn't know what she was signing?
No, not at all.
Now, she characterized your signing the document as she was lifting off with you. First of all, was that physically possible?
No, it's not, sir. No.
And do you remember even seeing her sign?
Oh, yeah.
Your Honor, I'll ask the witness to be advised he's under penalty of perjury up there.
Yeah, what he said.
Great. Yeah.
My defendant is a religious man, and he certainly wouldn't perjure himself.
And what
Go ahead,
religion was
Mr.
that?
Go ahead, Mr. Lipov.
It was a little awkward, to be honest with you. I've been known to have quite a bit of animal magnetism with the opposite sex. And,
Remember the perjury.
the mojo usually starts with the hat. Gives me a feeling of power and it emanates out. And when she got into the basket, well, her eyes locked with mine. And I had to turn her around and say, please, you have to sign that beforehand. And she may not have been in the right state of mind, but it's not my fault. It's just one of those things that happens. But she did sign it, yes.
Okay.
I think she would have done anything to be with me at that time.
Okay, so the document's signed somehow.
You're laughing.
Yeah. I apologize. I was thinking of the folly of signing a document because she wanted to be with a man.
Certainly.
Continue with your narrative. Tell us what happened next.
Well, we got into the air and things seemed to be functioning fine. And you know, I'm not a avid competitor. My idea was just to be able to get close to the target. I would have been happy with that. But she was really becoming excited about this whole flight. And this is important because of her bank. And so I wanted to make sure that things went well because
of her bank?
Well, because
Not bank.
the bank, because without her, there is no Pumpkin Fest next year. So I wanted to make sure that she was going to suggest that the event went on next year. So as we're flying along, she's thinking that she's saying, are you gonna compete? Are you gonna go for the pumpkin? And I said, I'll probably just kind of fly by. And she leaned over and whispered in my ear, go for it.
What did you make of that remark?
Well, I'm a trained professional, sir. I run a house for wayward girls. And I'm able to restrain myself. I know it's a heartbreak for her, but it did kind of distract me for a short bit, and we started descent, and we were on the mark for the pumpkin.
Jury, what was it she did?
She told me, you know, I'm from New Orleans, if you know what that means. And I said, no. And she said, well, I have these. And more of these.
How does one get those kinds of beads in their
They take off their shirt.
Oh! Is that what happened, Mr. Dilipov?
It is. And when she was rejected by me, she jumped out.
No further questions.
Yeah, I suppose I could. Counselor, you have a question?
Mr. Dilipov,
Yes.
you've responded to some of our discovery requests for documentation from you. Is that true?
It is.
And isn't it true that the documentation that you provided to my office showed that you have accomplished no level of achievement in the FAA Wings program? Isn't that true?
My people filled out that form. I'm not sure.
The document you provided said no wings credit. Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
The Balloon Federation of America has a Pilot Achievement Award program. And the document you provided us show you've reached no level of accomplishment in the PAT program. Isn't that true?
Well, I never participated in it, so I couldn't reach any level.
And isn't it true it's been, before this accident, it's been 3 years before you attended the BFA Sanctioned Safety Seminar by the documents you presented to my office?
Kind of.
Yes or no?
Yes.
He's badgering the witness. Objection.
He's a hostile witness, I'm not laughing at it.
No,
So part of your defense is that you, like all the other sheep, when one flew, you decided to fly two regardless of the weather conditions at the time. Is that right?
Well, I guess we were mostly sheep then, because it was 24 out of 28. It was majority rule.
So that's your excuse?
I'm sticking to it.
Your counsel seemed to be offering an excuse that you relied upon the extremely faulty weather forecasting, relied upon weather reports from Columbus, Dayton, other faraway places. Why did you choose to because it's your responsibility. Why did you ignore the weather reports from Rickenbacker, Fairfield, and Circleville airports?
I don't recollect seeing them, sir.
You don't reckon seeing them? You can carry a current sectional?
You just say sectional, did you?
You do have an aeronautical chart that shows.
Oh, yeah, I got one, that, sure.
Did you happen to refer to
2002.
that weekend?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you refer to your chart that weekend to see that there were other closer airports that had weather information more relevant to your intended flight than those remote locations?
Oh, there were airports, there were towers, there was all sorts of stuff on that thing.
Did you contact on your own any of the weather reporting stations closer to you than Columbus and Dayton?
Have you ever tried to find a payphone?
Is this gonna be a good one?
Oh, yeah.
You done with him?
Not, okay.
Well, we are running out of time.
Yeah, we're.
Thank God.
Are you the
I
person?
think if you're going for your Perry Mason moment, you ought to be working on it.
Full reporter, you get that?
See?
Did you give your esteemed crew chief contradictory instructions on that flight? Did you order him to assure that the nitrogen to your fuel was done at the same time you gave him the put in order to get that, I won't use your words, but get that blank blank release signed?
Yes. No!
You're under perjury here.
Maybe.
Your witness, counsel.
Nothing further. You may step down, Mr. Delabar.
Thank you.
I would like to call my, for just brief questioning, Gordy does it all?
Is this the brother-in-law?
This is the brother-in-law married to, yeah,
Okay,
that's the
okay.
guy.
We'd have the witness be ordered to remove that thing from his head and the sunglasses.
This side of the room seems to have a thing for hats and whatnot.
Brother-in-law.
It's most disrespectful to court.
Gordy does it all. You were the crew chief on the fateful morning which Ms. busted out, forced my client to fly her in his balloon, were you not?
That is correct.
Would you tell the multitude what happened, that how she forced her way into the basket?
She simply forced her way in.
That's good. And what did you ever sign the waiver, Mr. Does It All?
Yes, I did.
She told us that you didn't tell her what it said, you just simply said, here, sign it. Is that correct?
Qualifiedly,
Well, unqualified.
One thing doesn't know,
it's a standard waiver. It says stuff happens.
Is that what you told her?
Exactly.
No further questions.
Okay.
did you in any way explain the details of the risk that that document assumed that she was assuming the risk of?
She didn't ask.
Oh, so is your policy not to give that information about the inherent risk unless they ask?
Don't ask, don't tell.
You have policies?
You can step down, we're running out of time here.
That was a good one.
Yeah, well, so far, so good. Very good, brother, yeah.
We know the road lifeline.
I want my expert, Mr. Knows It.
Al knows it all.
Al knows it.
This docket being a rather full one as Al makes his way up here, I just want to caution the attorneys, this will be the end of today's session.
Yeah, it will be.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Knows It, you are an expert witness hired by myself in defense of my client.
I am.
And would you like to tell the jury your credentials?
I've been doing this for quite a while.
About 30 some odd years, I've won a couple world championships, a little competition, a little training, and been an examiner for the FAA for a while.
Okay. Now, did you examine the facts in this situation, and in this case, come to any conclusions?
I did, and I have.
Okay. I would like you to tell the jury what you noticed about the facts of this case and how they affected the incident, and what you thought particularly should be noticed.
Well, the first thing that I noticed based on the report supplied by the FAA was that the rate of descent at the time of impact, if you want to call it an impact, it was almost a landing, was actually quite slow going into the pumpkin tree, was the equivalent of only stepping off of a 4.6-inch high block. That's all the faster that she would have hit the ground had she not jumped. So I did.
He has no personal knowledge of whether she's jumping or not. He was not an eyewitness. He reviewed the document.
So
Yeah,
maybe
maybe.
continue. Go ahead.
I found it rather surprising that anybody could have, and I'm not a medical witness, but certainly something that tall, and that is about 4.6 inches, by the way, would seem to be, would end up resulting in a rate of descent of 300 feet per minute, which is approximately what it was shown on the GPS. Further, I happen to notice, despite some of the other testimony, that based on the weather conditions, the FAA themselves only suggested 3 reporting stations in their final report, not those that you alluded to. So if you'll look at their own report from the FAA and their report, they use those same reporting stations. And further, the information. Can I finish, please? I'm talking. We're running out of time. Give me a chance here. That I noticed that the local winds provided were in miles per hour, when in fact everything was 12 knots or below after you do all the conversions. So it appears to me that you flew well within the confines of the waiver.
No further questions?
Yes.
Oh, I sense there could be a question.
Yes, sir. Hi, Cindy. Better now. A popular face.
Just, all right.
No. Wait a minute.
You made reference to the GPS readings. Isn't it true that shortly before he was able to somewhat slowly descend, he was flying in excess of 800 feet per minute descent?
Yes,
Did that violate the waiver?
I saw no restrictions that you were limited to 800 feet per minute descent. No, it did not.
The waiver specifically said normal rates of ascent, descent, didn't it?
And if you would discover, if you had any experience at all in flying balloons, that 800 feet per minute up and down is not unreasonable. In fact, we had an earlier seminar today where the GPS section was presented. In fact, that is rather common. Just take a look at your GPS after you fly.
800 feet per minute descent is a normal over a congested space for which no waiver of 9119 was available.
Well, in fact, this area where he was actually making that descent after my examination of the map showed that was not a congested area at all during the approach. That was that open school area where he was doing that.
Actually, it was not a school, it was a park, and there were children in the park carving pumpkins. Is that true?
Actually, the park that you're referring to was downwind, and they shouldn't have been there. That's correct.
But they were there.
I understand that there may have been some other bystanders there. I don't know if they were told
And
that.
if those children had been trespassing in the park property, they were still there, weren't they?
Well, if you say so.
Yeah. Well, you read the facts.
I saw nothing like that in here. Uh-oh.
Oh, here it is. Thank you.
Late developing news, Counselor?
This really has become a battle of the experts. I like that.
Sorry, Al.
I guess turnabout's fair play.
You indicated that the defendant in the black hat, or is it brown?
Ron?
It appeared to be black hat. You based his ground speed, his descent speed on his GPS. Haven't the courts held consistently that the data of that GPS is not accurate enough to determine those speeds? friend of mine, from the FAA.
Really?
Ah.
This is the same FAA that didn't even know he pulled the waiver. And now he's a GPS expert.
I think you mischaracterized the waiver situation. Yes, he did not pull a waiver. The waiver was voided by the excessive speed, was automatically voided. There was no waiver at the time of the accident. It doesn't matter being pulled or not.
I please refer to the information provided by the FAA in their own report. And if you'll look, it says the weather conditions at the time of the incident, 260 at 12, 280 at 10, 260 at 12. If you'll also look at the forecast, and I conveniently ignored the fact that it was gusts to 20. If you'll also look at the weather, the forecasted weather, in no case was the forecasted weather expected to be in excess of that.
But in fact, his GPS did report wind speed, aircraft speed in excess of 15. Is that correct?
I don't have recollection. I'd have to look at that.
And sir, were you aware of the out-of-court settlement where we should be on, where they admitted no liability, settled with us for huge amounts of money?
Objection, we're running out of time.
We are running out of time, yeah. Would you like, are you done with your question of this witness?
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nosey.
Okay, I assume the attorneys are ready to rest their cases?
Yep.
Good, okay. Closing remarks, defense?
Ladies and gentlemen, as you see, there's a lot of factors that go into a situation and ends up in a courtroom such as this. And they end up on the shoulders of one person. Most of you are probably can empathize with that person. There's a lot of factors that go into how balloon accidents occur in the case of events, rallies such as this. Pressures that are exerted on pilots routinely. There are sponsors who won't take no for an answer. There are event directors who won't take no for an answer. There are a multitude of reasons why pilots get forced into flying under conditions they shouldn't be flying. They get forced into taking passengers when in situations where they probably wouldn't had they had their own choice in the matter. And they, unfortunately, from time to time, become victims of their, if you will, generosity. As I said when we opened this discussion, Mr. Lipoff is not the brightest bulb in the room, but he's very witty. And not being given totally accurate information, being under a lot of pressure from a lot of sources, and you heard the follow the crowd analogy he used. Unfortunately, that's what happens to balloon pilots, and they end up in courtrooms like this one. Not quite as funny. And you see that the blame is to be shared by a multitude of actors, many of whom don't do their job, many of whom don't care to do their job. But unfortunately, the pilot ends up paying the price. It's a fun exercise we had today, but unfortunately, this is reality. Those things that we talked about, I don't know where Judge Hangham High got the examples, came from true situations. And that being the case, it suggests to you that stuff like this, as humorous as it might sound today, can actually happen. We don't think we totally vindicated Mr. Lipoff today, but we thought that we brought out a lot of things that are things to ponder. And the most important thing to ponder is before you do what you do, and do as you're asked, perhaps you should think more, or else otherwise you'll be in Barry's shoes, defending against persons like Cindy busted out. No, nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Counselor.
Yes, we had affirmed everything counsel said. It's a rotten shame. You take your money, you take your choice. You want to yield to those pressures, You want to try to shift the blame to others, safety officer, weather officer, building master, event organizer, big corporate sponsor. Yeah, you may want to shift the responsibility around, but the bottom line is we are responsible. And you and the jury, you must follow the law. The law says it's his sole discretion to fly or not to fly. And we applaud the pilot, the defendant's case, for bravery, accepting those responsibilities, flying in marginal at best conditions, assuming that responsibility, all for the sake of saving the event for you next year. But out of that bravery, that boldness, you accept the responsibility. And now we're asking the jury to render a verdict in favor of the plaintiff. We're seeking $12.2 million, plus medical, plus lost wages.
Are we covered? Are we covered? Where's our insurance lady?
Are those for,
12 minutes pain and suffering, plus the medical specialist, plus the lost wages.
didn't the husband have,
That was still out of court, the loss consortium.
I thought-
Yes, the husband, the jury should know that the husband did sue for loss consortium because of the extensive medical injuries my client
Oh,
suffered.
now you're back with your husband.
okay, well, in the Kentucky courtroom, you folks are the jury, and this is the official applausometer. And by your applause, I will give you the opportunity to vote for our defendant or our lovely plaintiff over here. And based on the results, based on those results, then we will award damages. All those in favor of the defendant, Mr. Delipoff, show your appreciation for that. And those of you who would rather favor this rules in favor of this busted out. This court is adjourned. We have an announcement.
Not Mr. Busted Owl. Absolutely. How about a big round of applause for Rick John?